Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call Digital Edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.
Assalamu alaikum, another edition of Behind the Final Call cover story, and I just noticed that is the wrong overlay that showed up, but I don't know how I did that, but praise due to Allah. Eid Mubarak, another edition of Behind the Final Call cover story. This edition is volume number 41, number 31. On this cover is The Power of Satan Must Be Broken, Russia, America, and Europe in Crisis as Conflict over Ukraine War Hastens Demise of the Ruling White World and its Fall. Brother Nava, Assalamu alaikum. Once again, Eid Mubarak. Why this cover story?
Again, this week we're trying to do what we have really since the inception of this war with Russia and Ukraine. And we tried to show the relevance of that war, in particular related to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the warning of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and to give people, our people, and all of those who would listen, an understanding of not just what we see happening, but insight from the prophetic and scriptural point of view about where what we are seeing is headed. So this article really focuses on the continuing conflict among these powerful forces in the white world, and how the conflict of these powerful forces will ultimately break the rule of Caucasian people, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, that this was the day in which their rule would end in this particular period of time. And out of their destruction and fall would come our rise. And with our rise, we would be those who would be the inheritors of the great blessings of Almighty God Allah, who would move us and place us in a position of power. So we wanted to really, again, show and explain what is happening behind what we're seeing. And if you notice over the past week, maybe a little more than a week, you've seen this increase in tension. You saw America's Secretary of Defense speak of the desire to, in a sense, curb, break, or limit Russia's power. And you've seen Russia now talk again about limited nuclear weapons. Well, we really want you to read this week's article, because Minister Farrakhan spoke a couple days ago, actually yesterday, as Ramadan ended and Muslims were celebrating Eid, the end of Ramadan. And he talked about what's happening. And he talked about what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said would happen in terms of the use of nuclear weapons in Europe that would eventually make Europe a graveyard. So again, we got it right here on page 3. And we really, again, as always, we hope that you will read what we are presenting, because it's absolutely critical at this time.
All praises are due to Allah. Thank you, and of course you lifted the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's message that was made on May the 2nd. Very powerful, and it definitely, as we are looking at what's going on, and as the paper has been lifting and really discussing this war that's going on, and of course with the guidance and the teaching of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as represented by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, is that we're seeing how, even more so, how this war is going to engulf the whole entire world, how the Muslim world is going to be brought in, all of those things that, we don't see, or we wouldn't know unless it accept that we have a divine guide and divine guidance in our midst, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And we'll try to make sure that we make that a link available to, and we have to thank the Ramadan prayer line and their staff for providing the resource of allowing the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan to have the platform to hear him in the opening of our Ramadan, as well as the close. And inshallah, I'll try to make that link available before we close out. But very powerful message. As you and some of those words, as you mentioned, Brother Naba, I believe are in the article, are cited within the article. So you definitely want to check the article out, but you also want to hear the words of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. A beautiful piece to be able to hear his words and also read the article is what's shared there. So thank you for that. Want to go ahead and move on to the page 2, which I found kind of interesting. And it also goes into the war as well. Coalition denounces U.S. sanctions harming people worldwide. Can you go into a little bit about that?
Well, again, when we talk about war, we, in particular in this context of Ukraine, we're talking about physical war, bombs, tanks. But you have a coalition and you have those who are saying there's another type of war that America is waging around the world right now. And that war is the use of economic sanctions that are literally impacting the lives of millions of people. And so from Cuba to Afghanistan, to North Korea, to Yemen, to Iran, to Venezuela, we have seen the impact, the fall in incomes, the growth of food insecurity. We've seen the health and the economic well-being of people in these various countries suffer because the U.S. has unilaterally, meaning by itself, has decided it will strangle certain countries because it wants those countries to submit in some way to U.S. foreign policy or U.S. national interests. And we'll give you one specific example. In Afghanistan, you have people, and I think we reported on this last week or the week before, millions of Afghans who are on the verge of starvation because there are billions of dollars in money that belongs to the Afghans in U.S. banks. But because America does not approve of the Taliban, excuse me, the group that is ruling, she has refused not only to give aid to the Afghans, but she has refused to even allow the Afghans to access money that is rightfully theirs. So again, read the page 2 story and get, again, a deeper understanding and more information about what America is doing. And then when you hear the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talk about God's judgment against America for her evil, not just yesterday, but today, this kind of information helps to give you an understanding of what is going on and why America is in the position that she is in and why the fall of this country is to be expected and is happening before our very eyes.
Praise to Allah. Thank you for that, Brother Naba. As I saw someone posted and said, well, why should we care about this again? I think you did a beautiful, your expression definitely was a beautiful demonstration on why we should care. Because and going back to the first article as well, and as you mentioned, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's words, but that which you see overseas is definitely have a direct impact on us. And most can see, well, I won't say most, all can see if you shop, if you buy gas, you can see that this is definitely having a direct impact on us.
And not only that, your president's talking about giving another
right. Absolutely.
$33 billion. Another $33 billion to Ukraine, on top of $1 billion given a couple weeks ago, on top of billions given previously. Now, if you're fine with cities getting nothing, if you're fine with our children's educations not being funded, if you're fine with people going hungry in this country, if you're fine with the lack of development of our community, if you don't think we're owed anything in reparations, then no, don't pay attention. It doesn't matter to you. But when you look at the suffering of the people, our people in this country, and when you're looking at billions of dollars being spent just like that, not even a question, not even a debate, no dissent. You got congressmen in this country, and you've had black congressmen say to black people, you should be willing to suffer more so that we can protect democracy in Ukraine. So you better pay attention if you don't think it matters. Let alone, we should never be mistaken. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad is clear, and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is clear, and we should ask ourselves this question. If America is falling, and we are doing nothing or very little for ourselves, then what does America's fall mean for us? You think we're not going to suffer? You think only white folks is going to suffer? Who's suffering now? We are. So all of these warnings, all of this information is to spur us to do that which needs to be done so we can save ourselves. That's the point. Now, if you don't want to save yourself, then okay. Don't worry about it.
Praise due to Allah. Thank you. And maybe I misinterpret what brother was meaning, but in terms of the question, but we definitely, without a doubt, can see, hopefully we see how this is directly impacting our lives and why we should have a better understanding on what's going on. And you can do that, of course, by reading the Final Call newspaper. And I think the minister's beautiful job and beautiful expression, really tying us in and seeing how these things are impacting our lives right now. So
yeah, and my response was not to an individual question. It was to that overall question and the need for us to really be aware of what is happening and to be aware of warnings being given to us, and a divine warning that is almost 100 years old in this country now. And this is the word and the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now, either the man is either he's telling the truth or he ain't. Either he's telling the truth or he's not. But when a man tells you from the divine supreme being what is going to happen, and when he explains to you what is happening, that's a blessing if you heed the warning. Just like when you look in the Bible, in the Holy Quran, if you heed the warning. And so for people like us who have so many different issues. Whatever we think, logic should say to us that we at least, at minimum, we need to try to do more for ourselves. At minimum, we should be doing everything we can to save ourselves. And I'm going to close with this. You got a Democratic president. You got a democratically controlled House. You got a democratically controlled Senate. But you can't get major legislation passed to benefit Black folk. So voting rights are under attack in states across the country. You've got no federal response to protect Black voting rights, even though 2 years ago, Blacks were literally praised for not just defeating Donald Trump, but for saving America's democracy. You just got the case we ran on the cover about 2 weeks ago of Patrick Lyoya, shot to death by a police officer, unarmed, shot to death in the back of the head by a police officer after what should have been a simple traffic stop in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Yes, sir.
But yet we still don't have any change, despite all the protests, despite all the people that was in the street, despite all the crying and the tears and holding hands. No legislation at the federal level to protect Black people. So my point is, no matter how you slice it, so to speak, we need to be aware of what is going on. And we need to be using that awareness to make us do everything that we can to save ourselves. I don't think that's unintelligent when we continue to look to the children of our slave masters for relief, and there is none. We just don't see it coming. And if anything, we see this increased animus against Black people in a country that is already just, if you don't see this country spiraling out of control, I don't know what to say.
Yes,
maybe you need to read the final call a little more.
I don't know if that could do it. I mean, I guess that's the only hope you got it at this point, and listen to the guidance of the Honorable Miss Louis Farrakhan. But what's that song? If you don't know by now,
yeah. Well, it's just important, brothers and sisters, and we're saying some things kind of in a half joking way, but I hope that you understand, and I hope that you see the relationships between what we publish in the final call as news and what we publish in the final call as direct witness bearing and direct relating of what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught. And this morning from the minister, we really hope that you see the relationship between those things, because we are very intentional about being that voice of warning, about being that watchman on the wall, because we are in very dire circumstances. And there's very little value to a warning if it's not given. Of course, if it's not given, you can't hear it and you can't respond. But also if the word is given, if warning is given, and we, the Holy Quran speaks of those who put their fingers in their ears, right? And the Holy Quran, the book of scripture, the Muslim also says at another place that they love not good advisors, because the people are so steeped in darkness and they are so steeped in doing that which they found their fathers doing, that they do the same thing and they think that nothing will change. I would submit to you, brothers and sisters, that again, and this is where, see, we respect your intelligence enough to give you information for you to consider and make up your own mind. We respect you enough to make an argument and then put out the evidence for you to look at it, examine it, critique it, and then decide whether you will believe, disbelieve, whether you will accept or not accept. So we hope that you are doing that, because it's very important for us in this hour. And I would say this is a different hour than what it has been. And I would encourage you to read our cover story from page 3 in particular, and also to read directly the minister's article this week, Satan Promises Only to Deceive, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's article about the judgment, because these pieces of information are all designed to help us see so that we can do what is necessary, so we are not caught up in a judgment that is designed for our enemies. Okay?
Praise to Allah. Thank you for that. And just once again, is that, when you the one of the best pieces of advice that we can take is the advice that they give you when you get on the airplane. And that advice is, put your mask on first. Is that you can't help anybody else. You really can't be too concerned about anyone else, even if it's a child, if you're not in a position that you can help them. And the way that you do that is that you have to put yourself in a position that your life is preserved so that you can help others that you care about, that you love, and that you're concerned about. And I mean, as we can see the condition of our people right now, we're dying. We're dying in mass numbers. And physically, spiritually, and just with the lack of resources, and the list goes on. And I don't have to, and I won't go down the list and the role of that. But it's definitely apparent that we have to do something for ourselves. And I'm going to jump a little bit. Actually, before I jump, can you touch on the article that is actually on page? No, actually, we did that. We did that one. So I'm going to jump to page 11 real quick. And this kind of touches on where actually, and I missed the wrong page. Actually, page 12. And I was able to, by Allah's grace and permission, I don't think I was on it live, but I went back and checked it out. And I think I participated in most of these. But Student Minister Ava has been doing, pushing the program of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in which he said that separation is the best and only solution. And this is actually a part 2 of this particular discussion that she had, and a call to action on building our promised land. Beautiful words, beautiful, and not just beautiful words, but beautiful action that we can see that we're actually taking in place right now. And something that we can say that, man, this is where we need to put our energy in. But that doesn't, because we put our energy in something, doesn't mean that we shouldn't be aware of the other things that are going on around us. So can you touch on this piece a little bit, Brother Nava?
Well, that session, of course, was devoted to looking at things that are being done right now to help us build our own reality. Some of the work of Brother Kamal in Detroit, work of others around the city. I mean, not the city, but around the country. Muslims who are city planners, people who have the expertise and who have the knowledge to literally help us not just envision, but to construct a new reality for ourselves. So all of these things we're saying, brothers and sisters, these things are what we should do as we face this daunting time. And as the minister has called it, and as the scripture calls it, a great and a dreadful day.
Absolutely.
Really a dreadful day for the wicked, but a great day for us if we would get on to the place where we need to be. And if we would focus on the community and self-development that is needed, I'll say this, brothers and sisters. If you look, right, you will see that this country cannot save itself. And if it cannot save itself, how can it save us? How can it save us? Just questions so that we can just consider what is happening in the world today.
Praise be to Lord. All praise be to Allah. And one of the things that I personally have struggled with in the past, and I think I'm finding that balance, is that and it's an argument I've made in the past in my immaturity. But it's when you see so much that we need in our community, why would we spend time looking at what's going on around the world? And the thing is that I guess, and if you play sports at all, of course you have to be interested in your offense, but you also have to put yourself in a position that you can be able to defend yourself as well. So you can't just decide that I'm going to be in this vacuum and say, well, we got to do for ourselves and forget everything else that's going around you, because what's going on around you is definitely going to have an impact on what moves you're trying to make right here and right now. So praise you.
And in terms, and I'm going to add this, in terms of both challenges and opportunities. In terms of challenges and opportunities.
Yes, sir.
So if you begin to see countries and societies around the world that are looking for an alternative to America's domination, if you know who you are, and if you understand that you're dealing with your people that are part of the original family, maybe you can find a partnership with them to do some mutual development, to do some mutual advocacy, right? So these things are only, I would say, disconnected if we're not quite clear on the terms of discussion that we're trying to put down.
And the other thing is, I think of the words that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan shared a few years ago now on Tavis Smiley's show, and he discussed and really pushed the importance of time dictating the agenda. You can be doing the right thing at the wrong time, and it becomes a wrong thing. And so that importance of being aware of the climate and all of these things that are going on should not necessarily deter you from doing things, but it may impact how you determine or decide to move out on a particular thing. So you definitely, once again, just echoing the same point, is that you have to be aware of what's going on so that you can take advantage or optimize your success based on the climate, based on the environment, based on other things that are definitely going on. I want to jump to back a little bit, and disheartening article, not a surprising one, but on actually page 5 of the paper, and that is an article dealing with a brother who was exonerated but not compensated. And the sad thing that that was one of the sad things in the paper is that actually this was, I believe, a predominantly black area or city, in terms of the those who run the country. So can you talk a little bit about that piece? Exonerated but not compensated, but those wrongly convicted and jailed, getting released is hard, but receiving financial remedy also isn't easy. Brother Naba?
So we start with the case of Daryl Howard, a black man who spent over 21 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. He was sent to jail because a detective, who also happened to be black, in Durham, North Carolina, basically fabricated evidence and did all kinds of stuff. Mr. Howard's murder conviction was overturned. He was exonerated a few years ago. He was pardoned by the governor of North Carolina. He filed a lawsuit and he won $6 million, but he hasn't seen a dime of that lawsuit. Somehow or another, the city was dismissed as a defendant, which to me is I've never heard of a police officer solely, individually being held responsible. The city's always held responsible because these officers are acting on their behalf. But anyway, at any rate, but the most egregious thing is the lawsuit was for $6 million. The city spent $4 million. Listen to this. The city spent the judgment was $6 million that this brother won after being in prison for 21 years for a crime he did not commit, a murder he did not commit. The city of Durham, North Carolina spent $4 million defending this black detective and then refused to pay this man anything. It's a travesty. It's a travesty. And of course, Mr. Howard's attorney, they're trying to work through this thing. It is just a travesty with a black mayor, black city council, and a black city attorney. But his case is not the only one. His case is a kind of especially egregious case, but around the country for those who have been exonerated. And we did, again, a story about 2-3 weeks ago. I think it was like something like 1,800 years when they added up the people who had when they added up the years lost just from folks that were exonerated in 2021. I think it was something like 1,800 years of life lost when you added up all the time that these people spent in jail for crimes they did not commit. And then once they get out, you would think that after being done such injustice, certainly money cannot get you back 20 years of your life or more. So hope that you will read this and learn about the continued problem of not only false imprisonment, not only false convictions, but the continued problem of, people working so hard to get these cases overturned. And then even once the person is freed, they still are not compensated in some small way. In some small way, so the society says to the person, we recognize that we are wrong. I mean, you got to read it, brothers and sisters, to see how horrible this thing is.
Yes, sir. Absolutely, absolutely. We haven't touched on really in a while, even though we mention it every week, the importance and value of the special section of the Final Call newspaper, which has been in there for, probably pushing a year at this point. But it's the special section, COVID-19, the U.S. COVID-19 and the U.S. policy of depopulation. And it really deals with not just the so-called vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine, and what it really is and how it is being used, not just on our people in the United States or in this country, but as part of the plan of depopulation. And in that other part is not just looking at COVID-19 vaccination as a tool of depopulation, but other things that have historically been in place and other things that are coming up and around now. And part of this article, it talks about, the vaccine passport that was raised at some point and now it's kind of been shelved. But can you give us a little bit more about this article that we can find on page 8 of the Final Call newspaper, which
Well,
is entitled Satan's Final Stand, Hostile Takeover of Humanity Through COVID-19?
well, if you really need to read the article to get a full understanding. But Dr. Ridgely writes about the true intent behind what is going on, how it is tied to depopulation, and how it is also tied to a desire to alter people at the genetic level, right? So again, what we're trying to do is to go deeper and to give you insight as opposed to only writing about what's there, trying to give you greater insight into what is behind what we're seeing. And again, why it is so important that we do what is necessary to get ourselves out of a danger zone and into a safe space. So definitely read that, brother Ridgely Muhammad.
Yes, sir. And I mean, and it just once again echoes the same sentiment that we've said and we've said in particular in this episode multiple times. Just the sentiment, man, that we cannot depend on anyone else except ourselves to do something for us. And when you see those things that, I mean, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that you can't phantom the depths of how wicked this enemy is. He expressed that you and when you read this, it lets you know and really guides you to know that if we don't do something for ourselves, we can't expect anybody else to do it. The only thing we can expect is what they have done in the past, and if you cool with that, then continue to wait for what's to come. But if the reality has come that they're not going, a person who won't treat you right, won't teach you right, and all they're going to do is continue to do what they've been doing, which is part of that depopulation plan. So get up and do something for yourself. With time is ticking on us, man, it's going fast. Where you want to go from here, Brother Nava?
Well, we got to go to page. We can't skip page 4. That's a very important story.
Oh, absolutely. So Mississippi prison horrors, inmates abused, neglected, killed. Honestly, I haven't gotten to this one yet, but can you tell us about this?
Well, this is a couple things. One, this is dealing with Parchment Prison, which is the main maximum security prison in Mississippi. Has a long history of horrendous conditions that actually started out as a slave plantation.
Wow.
And the federal government recently ruled that the conditions at Parchment were violations of the constitutional rights of the inmates. The Justice Department did a 2-year investigation, actually sparked by an explosion of violence across the prison and prisons in Mississippi where about 12 people died over a couple of weeks. So Rock Nation, which is part of Jay-Z's operation, and the rapper Yo Gotti filed lawsuits on behalf of over 100 inmates, saying that their constitutional rights had been violated. So now the Justice Department has come and made the determination that that is true. The question for us, as always, is what will it take to actually get people relief? So we want you to read the article. Right now, the state of Mississippi has about 49 days, or at least it had 49 days from the time when this report was issued, to respond and to decide if they will more or less enter into some kind of agreement with the feds to do something to change conditions, or if they will fight. And one of the analysts we talked to said it really doesn't make sense for the state to fight, because ultimately the state will just be spending money on a legal defense that could be used to help remedy these horrific problems inside. You're talking about decrepit conditions. You're talking about inmates not being protected from violence from other inmates and staff. You're talking about whole sections of the prison being dark because there's no electricity. You're talking about rancid food. We're talking about sometimes ankle deep water. You're talking about rats and rodents. And you're talking about really what two analysts also talked about, which is human rights violations. So again, brothers and sisters, as we continue to uncover, so when we're talking about the power of Satan must be broken, we're not talking about a man in a red suit under the earth. We're talking about people who display these satanic characteristics. They're evil, they are liars, they are deceivers, they are murderers, they are usurpers, they are all of these people. And so what we want, right? We want to show you who these people are. So read that article. And because one of the other realities is a few months ago we did a piece about the hellish conditions in prisons in Alabama. So check that out. Very important article. And this is, again, we're more likely to be incarcerated and we're more likely to be unjustly incarcerated. So these are the conditions that continue to plague us. And we really need to get good information so that we can make good decisions. And hopefully we're giving you information that will allow you to do that. That's our whole purpose.
And that's an important thing. And of course, in the article we shared with dealing with project separation, is that we don't want you to become information junkies. And I know some people that are news junkies, and they know everything that's going on with the news, and which is not a bad thing. But the thing that we're asking you really to do is that we want to provide you information that inspires you, encourages you, and directs you and gives you guidance on what you need to do. So the information isn't just for you to be one who can be knowledgeable and you can go around quoting things, but this is really designed to inspire you and encourage you and provide you insight on what you can do, so that not only can you improve the conditions of your neighborhood and improve the condition of individuals that you may care about, but we're told that the most important knowledge is the knowledge of self, so that you have to help self first. And self does not just mean by yourself, but you have to be looking at the conditions that directly impact you and your family personally first, so that you can open up and go beyond that. So definitely important that you know what's going on, so that you can be empowered to make some moves and decisions to improve our reality. Where are we going from here?
Well, let's go to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's article, which is, again, one that when I'm reviewing these articles, and as we are considering what we will present, in the paper. You know, his words, "The judgment nears." Very important article. You really got to read it as he gives us insight into what is happening in the world. You also have the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's article about Satan's desire and Satan's plan and Satan's effort and Satan's commitment to deceiving people. And you really, I would encourage you, brothers and sisters, really read both of those articles so that you can get a good feel and a better understanding about, you know, what is going on. And when we talk about Satan, get an understanding that we are not talking to you. We are not talking to you about somebody in a red suit. We're not talking to you about somebody with cloven hooves and somebody that's sticking pitchforks in people. No, we're talking about living human beings who have an evil mindset, who are committed to doing evil and committed to benefiting from the evil that they do. But all of that comes with a price for the evildoers. And this is the day when they will pay that price. And this is also the day when those who have been victimized will be delivered. So read the minister's article, and I think you will definitely have a better understanding of what time we're actually in. And hopefully that will encourage all of us to do what needs to be done.
Praise be to Allah. Well, I want to close on this unless there's something else that you have. This is a beautiful.
Wait. Oh,
yes,
yeah,
sir.
go ahead. No, you're closing right on the right thing. Go ahead.
Is of course once again I want to take the opportunity again. I see my cousin is actually on. I want to send a shout out to my cousin Leon. Thank you for supporting and jumping on here, and all those others that are on. Please shout out what city, what state you're calling from. We always appreciate your participation. Of course, our faithful follower, brother Lewis, is always on with us representing, and you can get the Final Call newspaper. I know he's gonna put it up before we close out where you can get the Final Call newspaper from on Saturdays in San Antonio. But he's going to get that specific location as well. And we want to thank all of those that support on a weekly basis. Please like and share so that we can get the numbers up and get the word and message out from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad under the guidance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan right here in our midst. All praises are due to Allah. Thank you all for your support. Brother Nabas. So once again, I'll say Eid Mubarak. For those who don't know, those Muslims from all over the world have just completed the celebration of Ramadan, which entailed us fasting while during the daylight hours, reading the Holy Quran in its entirety, one part of a 30th of it every day until the completion of it, abstaining from sexual relationships with our wives or our spouses, as well as really doing what all those who say they believe in God should be striving to do all year round. But we put a particular specific focus and energy on being the best that we could, being diligent on our prayers, and all the things that would make us reflective and pleasing to the word of God. So Muslims gather at sacred mosques to celebrate the night of power. Brother Naba, tell us about the story.
Well, of course, we know that the Night of Power is a very special night in Islam. And so it was observed at Mosque Mariam in Chicago, a beautiful night of extra prayers, beautiful night of spirituality and brotherhood and sisterhood and community. So we got great pictures and a great story. My brother Tori Muhammad, again, as we get more insight into the beauty of Islam and the beauty of Ramadan and the practices of over 1.5 1.4 to about 1.5 billion Muslims around the world.
Praise to Allah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You can see there's some very beautiful pictures that are in here. You see the beautiful MGT, the Sisters of the Nation of Islam. It was really a very beautiful experience to just be amongst the believers. This is kind of like one of the first, well, I guess Savior's Day was similar, but this will be our first Ramadan, being able to gather in each other's company on this level and to this degree since the pandemic. So very beautiful and enjoyable experience. I would encourage, and there's many who are not registered citizens of the nation, or even that aren't necessarily Muslims, that make the decision to actually join in on the fast of Ramadan, and because fasting is something that's beautiful and really an opportunity for you to strengthen your discipline, to allow you to develop and nurture your relationship with the Creator and focus to experience that which many don't have a choice but to experience. And those who may be less fortunate and may be homeless, may not have the access to food that you may be blessed to have. So if you didn't commemorate it this year, maybe you'll want to join us and check it out for yourself. Definitely reinvigorating experience for all who participate. Brother Naba, that's all I got for today. Any other closing words?
No, just, brothers and sisters, go to finalcall.com and subscribe. And look, follow, like, and share this program as well. Okay? Follow, like, and share.
Praise to Allah. Thank you once again. Eid Mubarak. Another edition of Behind the Final Call cover story. Assalamu alaikum. Until next time, may Allah continue to bless and strengthen you in your journey to become one with Allah and all of His creation. Assalamu alaikum.
Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call Digital Edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.